Leo Mitchell hadn't eaten in 14 days, and tonight, his 4-year-old body finally gave up. One moment he was sitting at the kitchen table staring at untouched food. The next moment he collapsed, his small frame hitting the floor with a sound that would haunt Ryan Mitchell for the rest of his life. Ryan, one of the richest men in Beverly Hills, dropped to his knees beside his son. Leo's lips were cracked and bleeding. His eyes rolled back, his chest barely moved. The doctors had given up. The specialists had walked away, shaking their heads. And now, in the massive kitchen of their mansion, the new maid, a 23-year-old woman named Maya, was doing something so dangerous, so absolutely forbidden, that if anyone found out, she'd lose everything. But as Leo's breathing grew shallow, and his father's desperate screams echoed through the hallways, Maya made a choice that would change their lives forever. What she did next broke every rule in the house, and possibly saved a dying child's life. Thanks for stopping by. Comment where you're watching from, I would love to know, and someone near you might be watching too. Hit like, share, subscribe, and tap the bell, so you never miss a story. Watch till the very end, the final twist will blow your mind. Let's jump right in. 2 weeks earlier, the Mitchell mansion buzzed with its usual cold efficiency. Expensive cars lined the circular driveway. Security cameras blinked from every corner. Inside, everything gleamed. Crystal chandeliers, polished floors, furniture that cost more than most people's houses. But money couldn't fix what was broken in this home. Leo Mitchell sat in the corner of his bedroom, surrounded by untouched plates of food. Pasta with butter, chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, ice cream melting into colorful puddles. His nanny, Mrs. Foster, a stern woman with gray hair, pulled tight in a bun, stood nearby with her arms crossed. "Young man, you will eat this instant," she commanded, her voice sharp as scissors. Leo stared at the wall, his green eyes empty. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, he just sat there, getting smaller every day. Mrs. Foster had worked for the Mitchells for 3 years. She ran the house like a military base. Schedules, rules, no nonsense. She believed children needed discipline, not affection. "Spare the rod, spoil the child," she often said, though she never actually hit Leo. She didn't need to. Her icy stare could freeze water. Downstairs, Ryan Mitchell paced his office, phone pressed to his ear. At 38, he looked older, gray, streaking his dark hair, lines carved deep around his eyes. He'd built a tech empire from nothing, turning a small app into a billion-dollar company. Everyone called him a genius, but he couldn't figure out why his son was starving himself. "What do you mean there's nothing more you can do?" Ryan shouted into the phone. "He's 4 years old. There has to be something." The doctor's voice crackled through the speaker. "Mr. Mitchell, we've run every test. Physically, Leo is healthy. This is psychological. He needs time, patience, and probably therapy. Forcing him will only make it worse." Ryan slammed the phone down. Time? He didn't have time. Board meetings, product launches, investors demanding results, and now his son was fading away. His ex-wife, Caroline, had left 6 months ago. She'd wanted a divorce for years, stuck in a loveless marriage, but she'd stayed until she couldn't anymore. Now she lived in Miami with her new boyfriend, sending money for Leo, but never calling. The house felt like a museum after she left. Beautiful, but lifeless. Ryan hired the best nannies, bought the most expensive toys, made sure Leo had everything except what he actually needed. That's when Mrs. Foster announced she was leaving. "I've done all I can," she told Ryan in his office, her face pinched with disapproval. "The boy needs more than I can provide. He needs." She paused, searching for the word, warmth. "Something I don't possess." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said. Ryan needed a replacement immediately. That's how Maya Brooks came into their lives. Maya arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning, carrying a small suitcase and wearing her best interview outfit, a simple blue dress she'd bought at a thrift store. At 23, she was young for a live-in maid, but she'd been taking care of people her whole life. Her grandmother, who'd raised her, had Alzheimer's. Maya had spent her teenage years cooking meals, giving medicine, telling the same stories over and over because Grandma forgot them 5 minutes later. She learned that patience wasn't just waiting. It was loving someone through the hardest moments. Grandma had passed away 3 months ago. The grief still felt fresh, like a wound that wouldn't heal. But Maya needed work, needed a place to stay. When she saw the job posting, live-in household assistant, good pay, private room. She'd applied immediately. Ryan interviewed her in the library, barely looking up from his laptop. "You're young," he said. "Not quite a question." "I'm capable," Maya replied, her voice steady despite her nervous heartbeat. "The previous nanny just left. My son, he's difficult." "Difficult how?" Ryan finally looked at her. His eyes were exhausted. "He won't eat. Hasn't eaten in 12 days. Doctors say there's nothing physically wrong. They think it's emotional." Maya thought about her grandmother, how she'd refused food toward the end, how Maya had learned to be patient, to sit beside her, to make meals about love instead of rules. "I'd like to try," she said simply. Ryan hired her on the spot. Maya's room was on the 3rd floor, small but comfortable. After unpacking, she found Leo's bedroom. The door was slightly open. She knocked softly. No answer. She pushed the door open slowly. The room was enormous, bigger than the entire apartment she'd grown up in. Toys everywhere, untouched. A race car bed, posters of superheroes. And in the corner, sitting on the floor, was the smallest, saddest little boy she'd ever seen. Leo didn't look at her. He was thin, too thin. His Iron Man pajamas hung loose on his tiny frame. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Maya didn't say anything at first. She just sat down on the floor a few feet away, not too close, giving him space. She'd learned with Grandma that sometimes people needed quiet more than words. After 5 minutes, Leo glanced at her. Just a quick look, then back to the wall. "Hi," Maya said softly. "I'm Maya. I'm going to be helping around the house." Silence. "You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to. That's okay." More silence, but Leo looked at her again. This time, a little longer. "I bet you get lots of people trying to make you do stuff, huh?" Maya said. "Eat this, do that. It probably gets tiring." Something flickered in Leo's eyes. Understanding? Maybe. Maya stood up slowly. "Well, I'll be around if you need anything. No pressure. Okay?" She left the door open and walked downstairs. In the kitchen, she found plates of cold, uneaten food. She threw them away and started fresh. Not fancy meals, just simple things. A peanut butter sandwich cut into squares. Apple slices. Nothing scary or overwhelming. She carried the plate upstairs and set it outside Leo's door. She didn't go in, didn't say anything, just left it there. The next morning, the plate was still full. Day 13. Leo's lips were cracked. His skin looked almost transparent. Ryan called another doctor who came to the house with an IV kit. "If he doesn't eat soon, we'll need to hospitalize him," the doctor warned. "Force feeding through a tube might be necessary." Ryan looked like he might break apart. "Do what you need to do." But when the doctor approached Leo with the IV needle, the little boy finally reacted. He screamed. A horrible, heartbreaking sound that echoed through the mansion. He kicked and thrashed, tears streaming down his face. No, no, no. It was the first word he'd spoken in days, and it was soaked in terror. Maya rushed into the room. "Wait," she said to the doctor. "Please, just wait." She knelt beside Leo, who was sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't touch him, didn't crowd him. She just stayed close, her presence steady and calm. "Leo," she said gently, "I know you're scared. I know everything feels wrong. But you're not alone, okay? I'm right here." Leo's sobs gradually quieted. He looked at her with those huge, heartbroken eyes. The doctor tried again to insert the IV. Leo screamed again, but this time he reached for Maya. His small hand grabbed hers, squeezing tight. Ryan watched from the doorway, stunned. His son hadn't reached for anyone in weeks. Maya made a decision. "Give us one more day," she said to Ryan. "Please, just one day." Ryan looked at the doctor, who shook his head doubtfully. But Ryan saw something in his son's face, a tiny spark of trust directed at this young woman he barely knew. One day, Ryan agreed. That night, Maya sat in the kitchen thinking. She remembered her grandmother's last months, how food had become the enemy because eating meant admitting she was still here, still suffering. She remembered that feeding someone wasn't just about nutrition, it was about connection, about making them feel safe enough to accept care. She thought about what Leo might actually want, not what adults thought he should want, but what would make a scared 4-year-old feel loved. At midnight, she went to the kitchen and started cooking. Not regular food, something different, something special, something that broke every rule Mrs. Foster had ever made. She worked quietly, mixing ingredients, tasting, adjusting. The smell filled the kitchen, sweet and warm and comforting. She'd learned this recipe from her grandmother back when Grandma could still remember things, back when their tiny apartment felt full of love despite having nothing. When dawn broke on day 14, Maya carried a small bowl upstairs. Her hands trembled slightly. This was it, her one chance. If this didn't work, they'd take Leo to the hospital, strap him down, force tubes down his throat. He'd be traumatized even more. She found Leo awake, staring at nothing. His breathing was shallow. His lips were bleeding from dryness. Maya sat beside him. She didn't offer the bowl right away. She just started talking, her voice soft and musical. You know, when I was little, my grandma used to make me something special when I was sad. She said food made with love tastes different than food made with rules. She said you could feel the difference in your heart. Leo's eyes shifted toward her, just barely. I made something like that this morning. Not because anyone told me to, not because there's a rule, just because I wanted to, for you. She held out the bowl. Inside was warm banana pudding, homemade with vanilla wafers, crumbled on top, just like Grandma used to make. Simple, sweet, made with care. You don't have to eat it, Maya said, but I made it especially for you, and I'm going to sit right here, whether you eat or not, because I like being near you. For the first time in 2 weeks, Leo looked directly at food without fear. He looked at Maya, then back at the pudding. Slowly, so slowly, his small hand reached out. His fingers touched the spoon. Maya held her breath. Leo lifted a tiny spoonful to his lips. He tasted it, swallowed, and then he took another bite. Tears streamed down Maya's face, but she kept smiling, kept sitting still, kept being present. Leo ate 3 more spoonfuls. Not much, but something. After 14 days of nothing, it was everything. When Ryan checked on them an hour later, he found his son asleep in Maya's lap, the bowl half empty beside them. For the first time in weeks, Leo's face looked peaceful. Ryan's own eyes filled with tears. How did you? Love, Maya said simply. He just needed to know someone cared. Over the next few days, Leo started eating more. Not a lot at first, just small amounts, always with Maya nearby. She never forced him, never made it about rules or punishments. She made meals feel safe again. But Ryan noticed something else changing. Maya wasn't just feeding Leo. She was playing with him, talking to him, making him laugh. Something Ryan hadn't heard in months. She transformed from a maid into something more. Something this broken family desperately needed. Then one afternoon, Ryan came home early from work. He walked into the kitchen and froze. Leo was sitting at the table, actually eating a full meal. Chicken, rice, vegetables. But that's not what made Ryan stop breathing. Maya was sitting across from Leo, teaching him to count the pieces of chicken on his plate. 1, 2, 3, she said, pointing to each piece. Leo giggled and repeated after her. It was such a normal moment, such a simple thing. But Ryan saw something he hadn't seen since his wife left. He saw his son happy. Actually, genuinely happy. And he saw Maya looking at Leo with such pure affection, such genuine care that it made his chest ache. That's when Ryan realized he was falling in love with his son's maid. And that terrified him more than anything. Because Ryan Mitchell didn't do feelings. He did business, profits, results. His marriage had failed because he didn't know how to love, only how to provide. And now this young woman, this stranger who'd walked into his house 3 weeks ago, was teaching him what he'd been missing all along. But something else happened that afternoon. Something Ryan didn't see. As Maya cleaned up the kitchen, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know what you did. Pay $50,000 or we tell everything. Maya's blood turned to ice. Her secret, the one thing she'd hidden from the Mitchells, was about to destroy everything. And when Ryan found out, he wouldn't just fire her. He might have her arrested. Maya's hands shook as she stared at her phone. The text message glowed like a threat in the dim kitchen light. $50,000. She didn't have $50 in her bank account, let alone $50,000. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she quickly deleted the message, but the words burned in her memory. Someone knew. Someone had found out about her past, about the things she'd done that could send her to prison. She glanced toward the doorway where Leo's laughter echoed from the living room. That sweet, innocent sound that meant he was finally healing. If Ryan discovered her secret, she'd lose everything. Worse, Leo would lose the one person who'd finally broken through his walls. She had 48 hours to figure out what to do and absolutely no idea where to start. For the next 2 days, Maya moved through the mansion like a ghost. She smiled at Leo, prepared his meals, played his favorite games, but inside, she was dying. Every time her phone buzzed, her stomach dropped. Every time Ryan walked into a room, she wondered if this was the moment he'd confront her. The blackmail text had been clear: 2 days. Then they'd send proof to Ryan Mitchell. Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in her small third-floor bedroom, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out who could possibly know. She'd been so careful when she applied for this job. She'd left that part of her life behind, buried it deep where no one could find it. But someone had dug it up. 3 years ago, when Maya was 20 and desperate, she'd made a choice that still haunted her. Her grandmother's medical bills had been crushing them. The insurance wouldn't cover the Alzheimer's medication. They were going to lose their apartment. Maya had begged for help everywhere. Churches, charities, government programs. Nothing worked fast enough. Then her friend Nicole had introduced her to a man named Philip. Philip ran a check-cashing scheme. Simple, he'd said. Maya would open bank accounts, using fake information, deposit stolen checks, withdraw the money before the banks caught on, and give Philip his cut. Easy money, victimless crime. Except, it wasn't victimless. Real people lost real money, and it definitely wasn't legal. Maya had done it twice, making enough to cover Grandma's bills for 3 months. Then she'd stopped, terrified of getting caught. She'd cut all ties with Philip and Nicole, changed her phone number, tried to become invisible. She'd never been arrested, never charged, but she knew what she'd done was wrong. She'd carried that guilt every single day since. Now someone was going to use it to destroy her. On the morning of the 3rd day, Maya received another text. This time, it included a photo, her own face, younger, standing outside the check-cashing place with Philip. The message below read, "Time's up. Tonight at 8 o'clock, we tell Ryan Mitchell everything, unless you pay." Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. She sat on her bed, phone clutched in her trembling hands, and did something she hadn't done since her grandmother died. She prayed. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't let Leo suffer because of my mistakes. Whatever happens to me, please let him be okay." That afternoon, Ryan called Maya into his office. Her heart nearly stopped. This was it. They'd already told him. She was finished. But when she entered, Ryan was smiling. Actually smiling. Something rare for him. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his massive desk. Maya sat, her legs weak, trying to keep her face calm. "I wanted to thank you," Ryan said, "for what you've done with Leo. The doctors called this morning. They said his weight is improving. He's eating regularly now. They're calling it miraculous." Maya managed a small smile. "He's a special kid. He just needed someone to listen." Ryan nodded, his expression softening in a way that made him look younger, less tired. "I'm raising your salary effective immediately." "Mr. Mitchell, you don't have to." "I want to," Ryan interrupted. "And please call me Ryan. Mr. Mitchell makes me feel ancient." For a moment, their eyes met. Maya saw something there she hadn't noticed before. Loneliness. This man had everything money could buy. But he was just as broken as his son had been. "There's something else," Ryan continued, looking almost uncomfortable. "Leo asked if you could eat dinner with us tonight. Not as staff, as family." The word family hit Maya like a physical blow. These people were offering her something she'd lost when Grandma died. Belonging, purpose, love. And, in a few hours, she'd lose it all. "I'd like that," she said softly, fighting back tears. Dinner was supposed to happen at 7. At 6:30, Maya's phone buzzed again. 1 hour. Pay or we tell. She couldn't sit at that table, knowing what was coming. She couldn't watch Leo's happy face, while her world collapsed. She had to do something. Maya made a decision that was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. She was going to meet her blackmailer. She texted back, "Meet me instead. Riverside Park. 1 hour. We'll talk." The response came quickly. "Bring cash or don't bother." Maya didn't have cash, but she had truth. And maybe, just maybe, She could convince whoever this was to leave her alone. She told Ryan she needed to run a quick errand before dinner. He looked disappointed but nodded. Leo hugged her legs, making her promise to come back soon. "I promise," she whispered, praying it wasn't a lie. Riverside Park was 20 minutes away near the waterfront. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Maya walked to the benches overlooking the water, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. A figure emerged from the shadows, female, late 20s, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, despite the dimming light. When the woman pulled down her hood, Maya's blood ran cold. "Nicole," her old friend smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was cold, calculating. "Hey girl, long time. What are you doing?" Maya breathed. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you disappeared," Nicole snapped. "You made your money and vanished. Left me and Philip to deal with everything when the cops started investigating. I stopped because it was wrong. I told you I was done." "Yeah, well, Philip got arrested 6 months ago. He's in prison, and I've been struggling ever since." Nicole stepped closer. "Then I see you on social media posting about your new job at some fancy mansion, living your best life while I'm barely surviving. So you're blackmailing me?" "I'm collecting what you owe me. 50,000. That's nothing to the people you work for." Maya's mind raced. "I don't have that kind of money. And even if I did, this is wrong." "Nicole, you know it is." Nicole laughed bitterly. "What we did was wrong. This is just business." "Please," Maya begged. "There's a little boy who needs me. He's been through so much. If you tell his father about my past, I'll lose my job. Leo will lose the only person who's helped him. Is that really what you want?" For a moment, something flickered in Nicole's eyes. Doubt, maybe, or regret. But then, she hardened again. "That's not my problem. You have until midnight to get me the money. Otherwise, I'm sending everything to Ryan Mitchell." She turned to walk away, but Maya grabbed her arm. "Wait, what if I turn myself in?" Nicole froze. "What? What if I go to the police right now, confess everything I did? Then you have no power over me, no secret to sell." It was a desperate move, but Maya meant it. She'd rather face the consequences of her past honestly than let Nicole destroy the Mitchell family. Nicole stared at her, shocked. "You're bluffing." "Try me," Maya said, pulling out her phone. "I'll call right now." For 10 long seconds, they stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Nicole cursed under her breath and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. Maya collapsed onto the bench, shaking. She didn't know if she'd won or just delayed the inevitable, but she couldn't hide anymore. She had to tell Ryan the truth before someone else did. She drove back to the mansion with tears streaming down her face. When she walked through the door, Ryan and Leo were in the dining room waiting. The table was set beautifully. Leo had even drawn a picture of the three of them together, taped to Maya's chair. "You came back!" Leo shouted, running to hug her. Maya knelt down and hugged him tight, memorizing the feel of his small arms around her neck. This might be the last time. "Ryan," she said, her voice breaking, "can we talk after dinner?" He saw the look on her face and nodded slowly. "Of course." Dinner was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Leo chattered about his day, showing Maya the Lego castle he built. Ryan actually laughed at one of Leo's jokes. For 2 hours, they felt like a real family. But Maya knew it couldn't last. After Leo went to bed, Maya and Ryan sat in his office. She'd rehearsed this conversation in her head 100 times. But now that the moment was here, the words stuck in her throat. "What's wrong?" Ryan asked gently. "You've been upset all evening." Maya took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something about my past, and when I'm done, you'll probably want me to leave." Ryan's expression grew serious. "I'm listening." Maya told him everything. The medical bills, the desperation, the check fraud, the guilt she'd carried every day since. She didn't make excuses or try to justify it. She just told the truth. When she finished, silence filled the room. Ryan sat back in his chair, processing. Maya waited for the anger, the disappointment, the order to pack her things. Instead, Ryan said something completely unexpected. "Why didn't you go to prison?" "I was never caught, never charged, but I know what I did was illegal, and now someone's blackmailing me over it." Ryan's eyes sharpened. "Who?" "An old friend. She wants $50,000 or she'll expose everything." "That's extortion. We should call the police." If we do that, my past comes out anyway. You'll fire me. Leo will. Her voice broke. Leo will lose the one person who's helped him. Ryan stood up and paced to the window, staring out at the dark grounds. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. Do you regret what you did? Every single day. Have you done anything illegal since? No, never, I swear. Ryan turned to face her. Then, here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow morning, we're calling my lawyer. We'll deal with the blackmail legally, and if your past comes up, we'll handle it together. Maya stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. You're not firing me? Fire you? Maya. You saved my son's life. You brought light back into this house. I don't care about your past. I care about who you are now. Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. Why would you help me? Ryan walked closer, and for a moment, Maya saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Something that looked almost like... But before either of them could say anything more, Leo's scream shattered the moment. A horrible, terrified sound that came from upstairs. They both ran. When they burst into Leo's room, they found him convulsing on the floor, foam coming from his mouth, his eyes rolled back. An empty bottle lay beside him, pills scattered everywhere. Ryan grabbed his phone, calling 911, his voice breaking with panic. Maya dropped to her knees beside Leo, checking his breathing, her medical training from caring for her grandmother kicking in automatically. But as she looked at the pill bottle, her blood turned to ice. These weren't regular medicine. The label had been torn off, replaced with a handwritten note in messy writing. You should have paid. Nicole hadn't given up. She'd escalated. And now Leo was dying because Maya had dared to stand up to her. The ambulance screamed through the night, its red lights painting the mansion's walls in blood-colored streaks. Paramedics worked frantically over Leo's small body, pumping his stomach, checking his vital signs, shouting medical terms that Ryan couldn't understand through his panic. Maya rode in the ambulance, holding Leo's cold hand, whispering prayers and apologies into his unhearing ears. She knew with absolute certainty that this was her fault. Nicole had poisoned a 4-year-old child to punish her. As the hospital doors burst open and doctors rushed Leo into the emergency room, Maya made a vow. She was going to find Nicole. She was going to make sure that woman never hurt anyone again. And if Leo died, Maya would turn herself in for everything. The fraud, the blackmail, all of it, because some prices were worth paying. The emergency room waiting area smelled like disinfectant and fear. Ryan sat with his head in his hands, still wearing the nice shirt he'd put on for their family dinner. That dinner felt like it had happened in another lifetime, not just 3 hours ago. Maya sat across from him, her mind racing. She'd tried calling Nicole 17 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. Nicole had poisoned Leo and disappeared, probably thinking she'd scared Maya into paying. But Nicole didn't understand what she'd actually done. She'd hurt an innocent child, and Maya wasn't scared anymore. She was furious. Mr. Mitchell? Ryan? Maya said, her voice steady, despite the storm inside her. I know who did this. The person blackmailing me. She must have broken into the house and put those pills in Leo's room. Ryan looked up, his eyes red and exhausted. The police are on their way. You'll tell them everything. I will. But first, I need to know, is there security footage? Cameras that might have caught her? Ryan's expression shifted. Of course, the mansion had cameras everywhere. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and opened the security app. Together, they scrolled through the footage from that evening. There, at 6:45, while Maya had been at the park confronting Nicole, a figure in a dark hoodie had slipped through the garden entrance. The person had moved quickly, confidently, like they knew exactly where the cameras were, but they'd missed one. The new camera Ryan had installed just last week, near the kitchen door. For 3 clear seconds, Nicole's face was visible as she looked up, checking for cameras she didn't know existed. That's her, Maya said, her voice hard. That's Nicole Park. Ryan immediately sent the footage to his head of security and the police. Within minutes, an APB went out for Nicole's arrest. But none of that mattered if Leo didn't survive. A doctor emerged from the emergency room, her scrubs spattered with evidence of the battle she just fought. Ryan and Maya both jumped to their feet. He's stable, the doctor said, and Maya felt her knees nearly give out with relief. We pumped his stomach and administered activated charcoal. He ingested what we believe was a crushed sleep medication mixed into some candy. Enough to be very dangerous for a child his size. But we got to him in time. Can we see him? Ryan asked, his voice cracking. He's sedated right now, but yes, follow me. Leo looked so small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. His face was pale, his breathing assisted by oxygen. But he was alive. His little chest rose and fell steadily. Ryan sat beside the bed and took his son's hand, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, I wasn't there to protect you. Maya stood in the doorway, feeling like an intruder. This was her fault, all of it. If she'd never taken this job, if she'd just paid Nicole, if she'd made different choices 3 years ago. Maya, Ryan said without looking up, come here. She hesitated, then walked to the other side of Leo's bed. This isn't your fault, Ryan said firmly, as if reading her mind. A criminal did this, not you. But she did it because of me. Because I wouldn't give her money. No, Ryan said, finally looking at her. She did it because she's a monster who would hurt a child. That's on her, not you. Before Maya could respond, 2 police detectives entered the room. They were professional but urgent, asking questions, taking notes, reviewing the security footage on Ryan's phone. Maya told them everything. The fraud from 3 years ago, the blackmail texts, the confrontation at the park, all of it. She expected them to arrest her on the spot. Instead, the older detective, Detective Martinez, put a hand on her shoulder. You're a witness and a victim of extortion. We'll need full statements later, but right now, our priority is finding Nicole Park. The fraud case is old, and you were never charged. Let's focus on protecting this family. It felt like grace Maya didn't deserve, but she accepted it. By 4 in the morning, Nicole had been caught. She tried to board a bus to Chicago using a fake ID, but the APB had worked. Police arrested her at the station. In her bag, they found the remaining pills and a bus ticket one way. When Ryan heard the news, he didn't celebrate. He just held his son's hand tighter and closed his eyes. Leo woke up at dawn. His first word was, Maya. She rushed to his bedside, tears streaming down her face. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I had a bad dream, Leo whispered, his voice scratchy from the tubes. I know, but it's over now. You're safe. Don't leave, Leo said, gripping her hand with surprising strength for someone who'd just been poisoned. Never, Maya promised. I'm never leaving you. Ryan watched them, and something shifted in his chest. This wasn't just gratitude anymore. This wasn't just appreciation for a good employee. What he felt for Maya was deeper, more complicated, and absolutely terrifying. The hospital kept Leo for 2 days of observation. Maya never left his side, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair, eating vending machine food, reading him stories, until her voice went hoarse. Ryan stayed too, canceling meetings, ignoring his board of directors, finally putting his son first. On the second night, after Leo had fallen asleep, Ryan and Maya sat in the dim hospital room, exhausted but unable to rest. Can I ask you something? Ryan said quietly. Anything. Why did you really take this job? You're smart, capable, you could have done anything. Why work as a maid? Maya was quiet for a long moment. Because I needed to disappear after what I did with the fraud. I was so ashamed. I wanted to hide somewhere no one would look for me. A rich person's house seemed perfect. Invisible staff. No questions asked. She paused. But then I met Leo. And he wasn't just some rich kid. He was a little boy, drowning in sadness, just like I'd been drowning in guilt. Helping him helped me remember why I'm here. Why I survived, when my grandmother didn't. What do you mean? Grandma used to say that we're all here to love each other through the hard parts. That's the only thing that matters. Not money, not success, just love. Maya wiped her eyes. I forgot that for a while, Leo reminded me. Ryan felt something break open inside him. My wife, ex-wife, used to say I didn't know how to love, that I only knew how to provide. She was right. I built this empire thinking that's what mattered, but I was building a prison. You're learning now, Maya said gently. That's what counts. Their eyes met in the darkness, and something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, the beginning of something neither of them had planned. But before either could speak, Ryan's phone rang. His lawyer, Linda Shaw. The conversation was short. When Ryan hung up, his face was grim. "What is it?" Maya asked. "Nicole made a deal with the prosecutors. She's claiming you were involved in planning the poisoning, that you told her about Leo, about the house layout, about how to get in." Maya's blood ran cold. "That's a lie." "I know. But she's trying to reduce her sentence by implicating you. The police want to question you again tomorrow, formally this time." Fear clawed at Maya's throat. This wasn't over. Nicole was trying to drag her down too. Leo stirred in his sleep, making a small sound of distress. Instantly, both Maya and Ryan were at his side, checking on him, making sure he was okay. He settled back into peaceful sleep. Ryan looked at Maya across his son's bed. "I'm getting you the best lawyer in the state. We'll fight this together." "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do," Ryan said. And the intensity in his voice made Maya's breath catch. "You're family now, and I protect my family." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. They brought Leo home 3 days later. The mansion had been swept by police. Every inch checked for threats. New security measures were installed. But the house felt different now. Less like a museum, more like a home. Leo clung to Maya constantly. At night, he refused to sleep in his own room, so Ryan moved a bed into Maya's small third-floor bedroom. She didn't mind. Having Leo close helped quiet her own nightmares about what could have happened. Ryan's lawyer, Linda Shaw, came to the house daily. She prepared Maya for the police interviews, coached her on what to say, filed motions to dismiss Nicole's false claims. The evidence was on Maya's side. Texts, timestamps, security footage. But the legal system moved slowly. During this time, something unexpected happened. Ryan started coming home early. He'd find Maya and Leo in the backyard playing tag or drawing with chalk. He'd join them, his expensive suit getting grass stains, his carefully styled hair getting messed up by Leo's sticky hands. One afternoon, Ryan actually laughed, a real full-body laugh, when Leo dumped a bucket of water over his head during a water balloon fight. Maya watched this powerful billionaire transform into a playful father, and her heart did something dangerous. She was falling in love with him. It was wrong for so many reasons. He was her employer. He was a billionaire. She was a maid with a criminal past. They came from completely different worlds. But when Ryan looked at her across the dinner table, when he thanked her for saving his son, when he stood up to protect her from false accusations, she felt it. That flutter, that warmth, that terrifying hope. Ryan felt it too. He'd catch himself watching Maya teach Leo to read or sing him to sleep or simply exist in the space they shared. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she was kind, genuine, strong in ways he'd never been. His business partners had started asking why he wasn't at the office. His board members were concerned. Ryan Mitchell was changing, and not everyone approved. "You need to get back to work," his assistant told him during a rare video call. "The company needs you." "My son needs me more," Ryan replied, and ended the meeting. That evening, after Leo was asleep, Ryan found Maya in the kitchen making tea. The house was quiet, peaceful. Moonlight streamed through the windows. "Maya," Ryan said, his voice uncertain in a way it never was during business deals. "Can we talk?" She turned, and the look on his face made her heart race. This was it. Whatever had been building between them for weeks was about to become real. But before Ryan could say whatever he'd planned, before Maya could respond, the doorbell rang. At 10 o'clock at night, Ryan checked the security camera. A woman stood at the door, elegant and cold in an expensive coat. His face went white. "Who is it?" Maya asked. "My ex-wife," Ryan breathed. "Caroline. She's back." And from the look on her face through the camera, she hadn't come back alone. Behind her stood a man in a suit, and he was holding papers that looked official. Whatever Ryan had been about to say to Maya would have to wait because the mother who'd abandoned Leo 6 months ago had just returned and she'd brought legal documents with her. Documents that could take Leo away from both of them. Caroline Mitchell stood in the marble foyer like she'd never left. Her designer heels clicking against the floor with sharp, deliberate sounds. She was beautiful in that cold, calculated way. Blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, expensive perfume filling the air. But her eyes were hard as diamonds when they landed on Maya. The man beside her held a folder thick with legal papers. He wasn't a police officer. He was a lawyer, expensive suit, briefcase, the kind that cost $500 an hour. Ryan's face had gone completely pale, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Caroline smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the smile of a shark that had just spotted blood in the water. "Hello, Ryan," she said smoothly. "I've come for my son, and this time I'm not leaving without him." She opened the folder and pulled out a document, handing it to Ryan. "Custody petition, signed by Judge Thompson this afternoon. Leo has been living in an unsafe environment, poisoned under your watch. I'm taking him back to Miami, where he'll be protected." Ryan's hands shook as he read the papers, and Maya felt her entire world beginning to crumble. After everything they'd been through, after all the healing and love and progress, it could all be stolen away in one night. Ryan's voice was barely controlled when he spoke. "You left him. You abandoned our son for 6 months, didn't call, didn't visit, and now you want custody?" Caroline's expression didn't change. "I left an unhappy marriage, Ryan, not my child. I've been getting my life in order so I could provide Leo with a stable home, unlike this place where he nearly died." "That wasn't Ryan's fault," Maya said, stepping forward before she could stop herself. "A criminal broke in." And who are you?" Caroline interrupted, her eyes scanning Maya from head to toe with obvious disdain. "The maid? How exactly does the help get to have opinions about my son?" "Maya saved Leo's life," Ryan said, his voice hard. "She's the reason he's alive and healthy." "How touching," Caroline said coldly. "A maid playing house with my family." "Is that what this is, Ryan? You're sleeping with the staff now?" "That's completely inappropriate," Ryan snapped, his face flushing with anger. "Maya is a valued member of this household who cares deeply about Leo, which is more than I can say for you." The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm just here to serve the papers. The hearing is scheduled for Monday morning. The judge will decide custody then." Caroline smiled triumphantly. "Until then, I have temporary custody rights. I want to see my son now." Ryan's jaw clenched. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse, to throw her out, to protect Leo from more upheaval, but the law was on her side. "At least for tonight." "He's sleeping," Ryan said, "and he's been through trauma. You can't just—" "I'm his mother," Caroline interrupted. "I have every right." Maya watched this unfold with growing horror. Leo had just started feeling safe again. This would destroy him. Ryan led Caroline upstairs, the lawyer following. Maya trailed behind, her heart breaking with every step. When they reached Maya's small bedroom where Leo had been sleeping, Ryan opened the door quietly. Leo was curled up in bed, hugging the stuffed elephant Maya had bought him. He looked peaceful, his breathing steady, his face relaxed. 3 weeks ago, this same child had refused to eat, refused to speak, refused to live. Now he was healing, growing, laughing. Caroline stared at her son, and for just a moment, something flickered across her face. Regret, guilt, but it vanished quickly, replaced by cool determination. "He looks thin," she said. "He's recovering," Ryan replied. "Thanks to Maya." Caroline's eyes narrowed as she looked around the small room. "He's sleeping in the maid's quarters." "What kind of father are you?" "The kind who actually stayed," Ryan shot back. "Jaime chose to sleep here. He feels safe with Maya." "Well, that's going to change," Caroline said. "Starting Monday, assuming I win custody, he'll be coming to Miami with me and my fiancé." Fiancé. The word hung in the air like a bomb. So Caroline had moved on, found someone new, and now wanted to collect her son like a forgotten accessory. Leo stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He saw his father first, then Maya. He smiled sleepily. Then his gaze landed on the blonde woman standing in the doorway, and his entire body went rigid. "Mommy," he whispered, his voice small and confused. Caroline's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. "Hi, baby. Mommy's back." Leo didn't run to her, didn't smile. He looked at Maya with wide, frightened eyes. "Is she taking me away?" Maya's heart shattered. She knelt beside his bed. "No, sweetheart. Nobody's taking you anywhere tonight. You're safe." "I'd like a moment alone with my son," Caroline said firmly. "No," Leo said suddenly, grabbing Maya's hand. "I want Maya to stay." Caroline's face hardened. "Leo, I'm your mother. We need to talk." "I don't know you anymore," Leo said, and the simple honesty of it was devastating. "You left." Caroline looked genuinely hurt for the first time. I didn't leave you, baby. I left the situation. But I never stopped loving you. Then why didn't you call? Leo asked, tears forming in his eyes. Why didn't you come back when I was sick? Caroline had no good answer. The lawyer looked increasingly uncomfortable. Ryan wrapped his arm around his son protectively. I think that's enough for tonight, Ryan said. You've served your papers. The hearing is Monday. Until then, Leo stays here. Caroline wanted to argue. Maya could see it in her eyes. But with the lawyer as witness and Leo clearly distressed, she had no choice. Fine, Caroline said coldly. But come Monday, Judge Thompson will see that this environment is toxic. Leo deserves better. She left in a cloud of expensive perfume and righteous anger. The lawyer tipped his hat apologetically and followed. When the door closed behind them, Leo burst into tears. Ryan and Maya held him together, letting him cry out his fear and confusion. It took an hour to calm him down, to assure him that everything would be okay, even though none of them were sure that was true. Finally, Leo fell back asleep, exhausted from crying. Ryan and Maya sat beside his bed, neither wanting to leave him alone. She can't take him, Maya whispered. Ryan, she can't. I don't know if I can stop her, Ryan admitted, and he sounded broken. She's his biological mother. She has rights, and the fact that he was poisoned in my house, a judge might see that as proof I can't protect him. But it wasn't your fault. Doesn't matter. In family court, they look at outcomes, not intentions. Ryan ran his hands through his hair in frustration. My lawyer says the case could go either way. Maya felt panic rising. There has to be something we can do. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. There might be. But you'd have to agree to something that would change everything. What? Marry me. Maya's breath caught. What? Not for real, Ryan said quickly, though something in his eyes suggested maybe he wished it could be. A strategic marriage. If we present as a stable two-parent household, the judge is more likely to grant me custody. Caroline is engaged to someone Leo's never met. We can argue that staying here with both of us is better for Leo's stability. That's crazy, Maya breathed. I know, but it might work. Ryan took her hands. Maya, I'm not asking you to actually commit your life to me, just to help me keep my son. We can annul it after the custody case is settled. I'll compensate you for. Stop, Maya interrupted. She pulled her hands away, hurt. You think I'd do this for money? No, I just meant. I'll do it for Leo, Maya said firmly. Only for Leo, because he deserves to stay with his father in the home where he's finally healing, not because you're paying me. Ryan's eyes softened. Then you'll do it? Maya thought about her grandmother, about the promise she'd made to always choose love over fear. This was insane, reckless, possibly illegal in some way she didn't understand. But when she looked at Leo sleeping peacefully, finally feeling safe, finally eating, finally laughing, she knew there was only one answer. Yes, she said, I'll marry you. The next 48 hours were a blur. Ryan's lawyer, Linda Shaw, was initially shocked by the plan, then grudgingly admitted it might work. They needed documentation, witnesses, evidence of a genuine relationship. They had to make it look real. On Saturday morning, Ryan and Maya drove to City Hall with Linda and Ryan's head of security as witnesses. The ceremony took 15 minutes. Maya wore a simple blue dress, the same one she'd worn to her job interview. Ryan wore a suit, but no tie, his expression serious. When the clerk pronounced them husband and wife, Ryan hesitated, then kissed Maya's cheek softly. It felt both completely fake and startlingly real. They signed the papers. Just like that, Maya Brooks became Maya Mitchell. Linda immediately filed an emergency motion with the court, presenting the marriage certificate as evidence of a stable home environment. She argued that removing Leo from his father and new stepmother, the woman who'd saved his life, would cause severe psychological harm. Caroline's lawyers fought back hard. They argued the marriage was obviously fake, a desperate ploy to manipulate the court. They presented evidence of Ryan's workaholic past, his emotional unavailability, his failed first marriage. The hearing was scheduled for Monday at 10 o'clock. The judge would decide Leo's fate in a single session. On Sunday night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bedroom. Her marriage to Ryan hadn't changed where she slept, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. Either Leo would stay with them, or he'd be taken to Miami by a mother he barely remembered. Around midnight, there was a soft knock on her door. Ryan stood in the hallway, looking as exhausted and anxious as she felt. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "No." They sat together on the small couch in her room, the silence comfortable despite the tension. "Thank you," Ryan said quietly, "for doing this, for risking your reputation, your future, for a child who isn't even yours." "He feels like mine," Maya admitted. "Is that crazy?" "I've known him for 6 weeks, and he feels like my son." "It's not crazy," Ryan said. "I feel the same way about you sometimes, like you've always been part of this family. Like we were just waiting for you to arrive." Their eyes met in the darkness. The air between them shifted, charged with something neither had named yet. "Ryan," Maya whispered, "if we lose tomorrow, if they take Leo." "We won't lose," Ryan said with determination he didn't entirely feel. "We can't." But they both knew the truth. The outcome was out of their hands now. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. They dressed carefully, Ryan in his best suit, Maya in a modest dress that Linda had helped her choose. Leo wore his favorite shirt, the one with dinosaurs. "Where are we going?" Leo asked, as they drove to the courthouse. "Just to talk to a judge," Ryan said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Nothing to worry about." But Leo wasn't fooled. He gripped Maya's hand tightly the entire drive. The courtroom was intimidating. High ceilings, dark wood. The judge's bench elevated above everything else. Caroline was already there with her lawyers, looking confident and put together. Her fiancé sat beside her, a handsome man in an expensive suit who kept checking his phone. Judge Thompson entered, and everyone stood. She was a stern-looking black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The hearing began. Caroline's lawyers went first, painting Ryan as a neglectful father who'd allowed his son to be poisoned. They presented medical records, showing Leo's weight loss and refusal to eat under Ryan's care. Then, Linda stood up. She called Maya to the stand. Maya's hands shook as she swore to tell the truth. Linda's questions were gentle, designed to tell the story of Leo's transformation. "Mrs. Mitchell," Linda said, using Maya's new legal name, "can you describe Leo's condition when you first arrived at the Mitchell home?" Maya spoke honestly. She described a child so traumatized he'd rather starve than accept care. She explained her approach: patience, love, making food about connection instead of control. She talked about the first time Leo ate, about his gradual healing, about the progress that had been made. "And the poisoning?" Linda asked. Maya explained everything. The blackmail, the confrontation, Nicole's revenge. She admitted her past mistakes, the fraud conviction from 3 years ago, but emphasized that she'd been a victim of extortion, not a perpetrator of Leo's poisoning. Caroline's lawyer cross-examined aggressively. "Isn't it true that you brought danger into this home? That without you, Leo would never have been poisoned?" "Nicole Park made her own choices," Maya said firmly. "I'm not responsible for her criminal actions, and I'd make the same choice again. I wouldn't pay blackmail money. That would have funded more crimes." The lawyer tried to rattle her, but Maya held steady. She was done being ashamed. She'd made mistakes, yes, but she'd also saved a child's life. Then Ryan took the stand. He spoke about his own failures as a father, working too much, being emotionally unavailable, letting his marriage die. But he also spoke about change, about learning to be present, about choosing his son over his company. "Mr. Mitchell," his own lawyer asked, "why did you marry Miss Brooks?" The courtroom went silent. This was the critical question. Ryan looked directly at the judge. "Because I love her." Gasps rippled through the room. That wasn't the answer they'd rehearsed. Linda's eyes widened. "I love her," Ryan continued, his voice steady and clear, "because she taught me how to be a father. She showed me that success isn't measured in dollars, but in moments, in laughter, in the way my son now runs to me when I come home instead of hiding. Yes, the timing of our marriage is convenient, but the feelings are real. And whether this court recognizes our marriage as legitimate or not, I know one truth. Leo is thriving because Maya loved him when no one else could." Maya's eyes filled with tears. That wasn't strategy. That was truth. Caroline's face had gone pale. Her fiancé looked uncomfortable, like he was realizing what he'd signed up for. Finally, Judge Thompson called Leo to her chambers. Private conversations with children were standard in custody cases, but it still terrified Maya. What if Leo said the wrong thing? What if he was too scared to speak honestly? 20 minutes later, Leo emerged, holding the judge's hand. His face was tear-stained but calm. Judge Thompson returned to the bench and reviewed her notes. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. "I've reviewed all the evidence," she finally said. "The poisoning was serious, but it was perpetrated by a criminal who has been arrested and charged. Mr. Mitchell's home security has been upgraded significantly. Mrs. Mitchell, Maya, has been cleared of any involvement." She looked at Caroline. "Mrs. Davis, as you've reverted to your maiden name, you had every right to leave an unhappy marriage, but you cannot abandon a child for 6 months and then demand custody when it's convenient. Leo has expressed clear preferences about where he wants to live." Caroline's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, children can't always decide," Judge Thompson interrupted. "But their voices matter, and Leo was very clear. He wants to stay with his father and Maya." Maya felt tears stream down her face. Ryan grabbed her hand and squeezed. "However," the judge continued, and Maya's heart sank, "Mrs. Davis retains visitation rights. Supervised visits initially to rebuild trust. If she can demonstrate consistent involvement over the next 6 months, we'll revisit the custody arrangement." It wasn't perfect, but it meant Leo was staying home. Caroline stood abruptly and left without a word, her fiancé following awkwardly. Her lawyers gathered their papers, looking defeated. Outside the courthouse, Leo threw his arms around Maya and Ryan simultaneously. "We did it. I get to stay." Linda smiled. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. You make a good team." As they walked to the car, Ryan pulled Maya aside. "What I said in there about loving you, I meant it." Maya's breath caught. "I know this started as a strategy," Ryan continued, "but somewhere along the way, it became real for me. You don't have to feel the same way. We can still annul the marriage after 6 months, like we planned, but I needed you to know the truth." Maya looked at this man, this billionaire who'd learned to love, who'd put his son first, who'd stood up for her when her past came back to haunt her. She thought about her grandmother's words. "We're all here to love each other through the hard parts. I love you too," she whispered. "I've been afraid to admit it, but I do." Ryan's face lit up like sunrise. He cupped her face gently. "Really? Really?" He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Leo made exaggerated gagging sounds, which made them both laugh. They went home, all 3 of them together. The mansion didn't feel cold anymore. It felt like what it was always meant to be. A home filled with laughter, second chances, and a family built not by blood or money, but by choice. That night, after Leo was asleep, Ryan and Maya sat in the kitchen drinking tea. The house was quiet, peaceful. "So," Ryan said with a small smile, "should we stay married?" Maya laughed. "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "Let me try again." Tyler got down on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. "Maya Mitchell, will you stay married to me for real this time? Not for strategy or custody, but because I want to spend my life loving you and raising Leo together?" Maya's heart felt so full she thought it might burst. "Yes," she said through happy tears. "Yes. I'll stay married to you." Ryan slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. They kissed again, longer this time, with the certainty that this was just the beginning. Upstairs, Leo slept peacefully in his own bed, finally comfortable in his own room now that he felt safe. On his nightstand was the drawing he'd made weeks ago. Him, his dad, and Maya, all holding hands. He'd written across the top in his messy 4-year-old handwriting, "My family," and that's exactly what they were. 6 months later, Caroline had attended every supervised visit. Slowly, cautiously, she was rebuilding a relationship with Leo. She'd never be his primary parent, but she was learning to be present in the ways that mattered. Nicole had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for attempted murder, extortion, and breaking and entering. The fraud charges against Maya had been quietly dropped after she testified against Nicole. Ryan had stepped back from day-to-day operations at his company, promoting his second-in-command to CEO. He still consulted and made big decisions, but he was home for dinner every night. Home to play with Leo. Home to fall asleep next to Maya. And Maya? She was no longer the maid. She was Leo's mother in every way that counted. She was Ryan's wife. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. One evening, as they tucked Leo into bed together, he looked up at them with those huge green eyes. "I'm glad you came," he said to Maya. "Me too, baby. Me too." "And Daddy." "Yeah, buddy. I'm glad you learned how to be happy." Ryan's eyes filled with tears. "Me too, son. Me too." They turned off the light and left the door cracked open just the way Leo liked it. In the hallway, Ryan pulled Maya close. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving us." "You saved me too," Maya replied. And in that mansion that had once felt so cold and empty, warmth spread through every room. Because sometimes the best families aren't the ones you're born into. They're the ones you choose, the ones you fight for, the ones you build with love, patience, and banana pudding made at midnight. Dear friend, what you just saw is only a piece of the bigger story. In the next video, a twist no one saw coming will be revealed. Make sure you're here for it. I'd love to hear what you would have done in this situation. Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Thanks so much for watching. Show some love by liking, subscribing, and sharing this with someone who needs to see it.